Sometimes when you help enough people, at some point some of them will be nice enough that one day when they do upgrade, they might just give you the machine you helped to fix. That's the case with this one, but there are a few issues with it, and now that it's mine, those problems are now mine to take care of. So did they really do me a favor? I don't know, but I do intend on finding out by the end of this video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Craftsman lawnmower, and the problem is that it was just given to me, but there are a few issues with it that I need to fix if I intend on using it or if I decide to sell it. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, but yours might be different, so this might not work on yours. So if things are not working out for you, like in the video, please ask about it. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Now, them giving me the mower that I've been maintaining for the last couple of years was a very nice gesture. The only issue is that since I've been the one working on this mower, I have a pretty good idea of all the issues that it currently has, but I am going to find a few surprises on this one. But then again, that is the definition of a surprise. The only issue though is that for every surprise, it means the cost of the repair will go up. So what all do I know about this particular mower then? Well, according to my friend, it starts and runs great and the self-propel works just like it should. So far it sounds like there's nothing wrong with it and it doesn't need any sort of fixing, so what am I going on about then? Now, if you've been watching any of my videos recently, you may have seen this mower at least once before, if not more, but if you haven't, then let me tell you what the biggest problem with this mower is, and it's a pretty obvious issue as well. Now, the biggest issue with this mower is that the brake cable has been broken for a really long time, and even though I've asked them on multiple occasions if they would like me to fix it, they've declined each and every time, and instead have relied on disconnecting the spark plug to stop the engine. But how are they able to start the engine if the brake cable is broken then? Well, originally they had a zip tie around the lever for the kill switch in the flywheel brake that eventually came loose, so we ended up using a piece of wire instead. The other issue, at least for me, is that the battery for the key start is missing. I think it was dead anyway, so it really didn't make any difference. However, I do have a plan to get it working again, and the best part is that it's going to cost almost nothing to get it working again. But before we continue, I need to make sure that the engine will start and run just like they claim that it would. Well, it turns out they were telling the truth about it, and considering the fuel that's in it isn't even fresh, it started pretty easily. And while I have this chance, I'm also going to get a pull reading on it just to see if we can improve on it by cleaning and lubricating the wheels. So out of several attempts that I made, the best reading that I got was 2.1 kilograms, which falls within the range for this type of mower, but I do want to see if we can get it any better than that. Now, since I was able to run the engine for a few minutes, it should be warm enough to do an oil change. So I'm not sure if the oil has been changed since the last time I did it, but by the color, I would say that it hasn't been changed in quite a while. Now, you could install an hour meter to the engine, and if you wanted to, change the oil every 25 hours, but I like to change it every spring whether it needs it or not. I'm also going to remove the blade so that I can sharpen it, and while I'm here, I also want to clean any grass clippings that may have collected behind this cover for the belt. Now, the reason I'm choosing to clean it at this moment is because if enough clippings collect here, it could start to affect the way the self-propel works, and besides that, more than likely, it's never been cleaned in the last 13 years since it was first put together. And just as I expected, the cover was packed with years of grass clippings. If I had to guess, there was probably about 2 pounds worth hiding in the cover. I'm also going to remove as much of the clippings as possible that's collected around the transmission as well. If the bottom of the mower looks this bad, I can only guess what the top of the engine looks like. Now remember, this is an air-cooled engine, so any sort of dirt or debris sitting on top of the engine could keep it from transferring heat away from the engine and could cause it to overheat. And overheating an engine is just as bad as it sounds, so if you want your engine to last as long as possible, keeping it clean is a pretty good start. Now, you don't have to do this job very often, but once a year makes scheduling it a lot easier than trying to remember if you did it last year or the year before that. After looking at it, to be honest, it's not that bad, and I could probably just get away with using compressed air to clean it. However, using compressed air can be very dangerous as you could get something in your eye, so I'm going to use water instead, but it is your mower, so use what you want. So back to the story. This mower was stored outside, but it was under the porch most of its life. However, it was never really protected from the elements. And after some time, the cables started to rust and swell inside the sheathing, causing it to get stuck, and of course the cables eventually broke. Fortunately for them, they knew how to bypass this issue, and that's how the zip tie ended up on the kill switch. So the bigger question is, why didn't they just order a new set of cables for the mower and be done with it? The answer is pretty simple: choice. So my friend was the one who gave me this mower and is a very competent person, and yet when I saw this mower, I said to them, "So you use a 10-year-old mower and on top of that, you don't take care of it?" What they said in response was simply amazing.
And this mower started each and every time I needed it to, even with me not doing any maintenance on it, so why would I start now?
My response was that I can see where they're coming from, and that was the end of the conversation. I simply could not disagree with their reasoning. They had made a choice to do what they were doing, and that's the most I could ask of anybody, which is to make a choice and stick with it. Of course, I don't have to agree with their choice, but then again, this is not my mower and I am not responsible in taking care of it. Now, I do have my own views, and yes, more than likely they're not going to line up with theirs, but that's okay though. So the only other issue was that they never took care of the starting battery for the key start, but why? All you have to do is plug in the charger a few times a year. Now there are a few other hoops you have to jump through, but I will not be mentioning them until I show you my fix, but you get the idea. Batteries simply don't last and are very sensitive to their state of charge and also environmental conditions. Sounds like a great future to me. So what exactly is my idea on how to fix the key start then? Well, the standard way would be to replace the battery with an OEM battery, but you'll find that option to be very expensive, which in my mind is much too expensive for a tiny battery that's smaller than the ones you'll find in a kid's Power Wheel. Instead, I've got a better idea, and that's to use a battery from a power tool, but I've got one major problem though. The problem is that any battery that I use needs to go with the mower, because if you hadn't guessed it, I am going to sell this mower only because I already have a great mower. That means I need to find a cheap battery option with a charger, and I think I found one. So if you couldn't tell, I decided to use this 12-volt battery for a power tool, and the best part is that it comes with a charger. So this basically takes care of all the concerns of replacing the battery with a standard lead-acid battery by using lithium. So I'm showing you the battery and charger now instead of showing you at the end of the video, and that's because I need to get it out so I can charge it, and hopefully it'll be charged by the end of the video so I can test it. Now, I'm not sure how much power is in this battery because this one is so cheap that it doesn't come with a battery indicator. It only has an LED that glows red when charging and turns green when it's full. And while the battery is charging, I'm going to use this time to clean and lubricate the wheels so that it's a lot easier to use this very heavy mower. So why did I choose to use this specific tool battery instead of using my Milwaukee battery, which I think would have been a much better choice? The answer is very simple. The battery that I choose to use has to go with the mower as part of the mower. I'm not going to give them my Milwaukee battery because first off, it costs a lot, and secondly, unless they have a Milwaukee charger, they won't have a way to charge it. So I needed to find a cheap battery and charger, and this one from my local freight store fit the bill nicely, not only with what comes in the packaging, but also with the price. So at the time of filming this video, the battery and charger was less than $15, and to be honest, the 18-volt battery would have been a much better choice, was only $5 more. So how can you beat that deal? The answer is you can't, unless you already have some power tools and you don't mind using your own battery, but this mower was sold as a complete mower, battery and charger included. Now this is not the first key start mower I've shown on this channel or my other channel, and if you've seen those videos, you're going to notice that I never replaced the batteries to get them working again, so why now? The answer is very simple. Now if you're 29 years old and in great health, pulling on a rope to get your mower to start and run is easy, but what happens when you're not 29, but much older, say 69, and your throwing arm isn't what it used to be? So how tough is it going to be on you when you try and start your mower? The answer is much tougher than you remember it being. But you don't have to be older to have a wrist, elbow, or shoulder problem, so those that do have an issue, a key start is a must. And if you still don't agree with me, that's okay. Wait a few years and see if you change your mind. So it's been about an hour since I plugged the charger into the battery, and even though the battery light was not green, I still want to see if this is even going to work to spin over the starter and more importantly, the engine. After connecting the black wire to the negative terminal and the orange wire to the positive, I'll then hold down the brake cable and then turn the key and see what happens. So the good news is that the battery works, but the bad news is that it didn't have enough power in the battery to completely turn over the engine. That means I'll have to put the battery back on the charger for another 20 or 30 minutes or until I get done putting this mower back together and back onto the ground. Then we'll see if that $14 that I spent was worth it or not. Now, if you have a mower like this one and it needs a new battery and you have a power tool, I would definitely try and use its battery. Just make sure the voltage is not too much for the electrical system on the mower, otherwise you might damage the wiring or the starter. Now, after taking off the air filter base, I realized that we had a big problem. The emissions breather hose was missing and was allowing some dirt to get past the air filter. Now, this is a bigger problem than you think it is. When dirt gets into the engine, it can cause it to wear out faster than it's supposed to. Luckily for this engine, it hasn't seemed to hurt it enough to stop it from starting and working like it should, but if it was used like this for a long time, there's a good chance it could have been a lot worse. Fortunately, I had a breather hose from a parts engine, so I took that one to use on this one, that way that scenario won't happen. Now, I will have to buy some more of those breather tubes since I don't have 20 parts engines just lying around, although if you wait long enough, it could happen over some time. So back to the battery. Now, I could have easily bought a smaller 12-volt battery instead of the one that's meant for this mower, and the price for it would have been only $19, but there's a problem. When you buy that $19 battery, it doesn't come with a way to charge it. Yes, you could use a battery tender or even an automotive battery charger, but most people don't have one even though they might have a vehicle. So to get a battery that fits in the battery box and comes with its own charger for only $14, I think I made a great choice, and once the new owner uses the key start, they'll realize how much less stressful it can be to start a mower. In fact, the replacement cables for the brake handle was more expensive than the battery and charger, which I think is pretty amazing. First, for the battery being so affordable, or if you want to see it from the other way, how expensive the cables were. Either way, I would not recommend selling a mower or any piece of equipment with a part of the safety system bypassed for obvious reasons. Once the cables have been replaced, I'll then check to make sure they work like they're supposed to, and then put some fresh oil into the engine, making sure not to overfill it. Now, you can use whatever oil you have on hand. Don't listen to other people who say you should use this oil or that oil. It's your mower, do what you want with it. I'll then get the mower back on the ground for another pull test to see if our efforts to clean and lubricate the wheels paid off. And with a reading of 1.6 kilograms, which is a huge improvement from the first test, I'd say that was well worth it. It's now finally time to see if this mower will start without using the pull rope. So that has to be the easiest way to start a mower. I don't know why all mowers don't have key starts. And before you say because of price, if all mowers had a key start option and because of the supply, the system would not increase the price of the mower by as much as it does right now, which seems to be about an extra $100. So here's the deal. Electric start is not needed to start this mower. In fact, even with the half-hearted pull from a 6-year-old, this mower will start. So for someone with an arm, wrist, or even a shoulder problem, starting this engine will not be a problem. So let me say this out loud. If you have to pull on the rope with all your strength and also have to pull it more than a few times, something needs to be cleaned or adjusted to get that engine to start a lot easier. So for this one, it's surprisingly easy to start despite not having an emissions hose connected to it for who knows how long, and considering it's 13 years old, that's pretty good in my book. So my question is, if you needed a battery for your push mower or even your riding mower, do you think you might use your battery from your power tool to try and start it as an alternative to getting a replacement battery, which, let's face it, is probably going to be overpriced? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.